Amy Carter walked through the long silver hallways of the Galactic Defense Academy. Her boots made soft sounds on the smooth metal floor. Around her, tall alien beings moved with confidence. They talked in deep voices and strange clicking sounds. Amy kept her head up, but inside she felt very small. The academy was huge. It sat on Zentari Prime, a peaceful planet far from Earth. The buildings reached toward purple skies, and strange plants grew in perfect gardens. Everything here was clean and advanced. Nothing like the rough streets where Amy grew up in Detroit. A group of Krillian cadets walked past her. They were giants, each one over 8 feet tall. Their gray skin looked like stone, and their forearms moved with deadly grace. One of them, a female named Vera, looked down at Amy and laughed. "Look at the tiny human," Vera said to her friends. "She looks like a child playing dress-up." The other Krillians joined in the laughter. Their deep voices echoed in the hallway. Amy felt her face get hot, but she kept walking. She had heard worse things in her 3 years here. Amy was indeed small. At 5 feet tall, she was the shortest cadet in the entire academy. Most aliens towered over her. The Krillians were giants. The Velthari were tall and thin like dancers. Even the bug-like Xerians stood taller than her. But Amy was used to being different. She was the only human in a school of 5,000 alien cadets. Earth had only joined the Galactic Alliance 10 years ago. Most aliens still thought humans were primitive and weak. She entered the main study hall. Hundreds of alien students sat at floating desks. Their homework appeared as holograms in the air. Amy found an empty spot in the back corner. She always sat alone. The lesson today was about combat theory. Professor Kent, an Arcurian with 6 eyes and blue skin, spoke about different fighting styles across the galaxy. His voice was calm and smart, like all Arcurians. "Each species has evolved unique advantages," Professor Kent explained. Krillians possess superior strength. Velthari have unmatched speed and grace. Xerians can predict enemy movements through their psychic abilities. Amy took notes on her tablet. She had heard this lecture many times. Professors always talked about what made each alien race special. They never mentioned humans. A Velthari student named Quinn raised her hand. She was beautiful in the Way Hall. Velthari were, with silver skin and large purple eyes. "Professor, what about humans? What makes them special?" Several students turned to look at Amy. She tried to make herself smaller in her chair. "Professor." Kent's 6 eyes blinked slowly. "Humans are adaptable," he said after a pause. "They show determination in the face of difficulty." Some students giggled. Quinn smiled in a way that was not kind. "Determination," she repeated. "How useful in real combat." Amy's hands made fists under her desk. She had heard this her whole time at the academy. Humans were determined. Humans were brave. Humans tried hard. But they were not strong like Krillians. They were not fast like Velthari. They were not smart like Archer, IANS. After class, Amy walked to the training grounds. Physical education was her worst subject. She could understand the theory of combat. She could memorize star maps and learn alien languages. But when it came to actual fighting, she always fell behind. The training area was enormous. Different. Sections had different gravity levels to help alien students practice. Amy headed to the Earth normal section. It was mostly empty. Few aliens wanted to train in the weak gravity that humans needed. Captain Zexthel was waiting for her. He was a retired Krillian warrior with scars covering his forearms. He had fought in real wars and won many battles. Now he taught combat to academy students. He did not like teaching humans. "Carter," he said in his rough voice, "you are late." "Sorry, sir," Amy replied. She was not actually late, but she never argued with Captain Zexthil. Today, we practice. Close combat, he announced. You'll spar with Cadet Korvac. Amy's heart sank. Korvac was the biggest Krillian in their class. He stood 9 feet tall and had muscles like steel cables. His 4 arms could move faster than Amy could think. She had sparred with him before and lost badly. Other students gathered to watch. They always enjoyed seeing the human get beaten. Vera was there, still smiling from their earlier encounter. Quinn floated nearby, her Velthari grace making her look like she was dancing, even while standing still. This should be entertaining, someone whispered. Korvac stepped into the training circle. He wore protective gear, but Amy knew it would not matter. He could hurt her badly, even while holding back. He looked down at her with his small red eyes. Try. To last more than 10 seconds this time, human, he said. Amy put on her protective gear and entered the circle. The padding felt thin and useless. Captain Zexthal activated the training field. If either fighter took too much damage, the field would stop the match. Begin, Captain Zexthal commanded. Korvac moved forward slowly. He was not trying hard. To him, this was just practice. Amy was not a real opponent. She was just a weak human who would fall down quickly. Amy tried to remember her training. She moved to the side, trying to use her smaller size to her advantage. But Korvac was faster than he looked. One of his arms swept out and knocked her backward. She rolled and got back up. The watching students laughed. The human moves like a scared animal, someone called out. Amy tried again. She ducked under Korvac's next swing and aimed a punch at his side. Her fist hit his ribs with a solid thud. It was a good hit. On another human, it would have hurt badly. Korvac did not even notice. He grabbed Amy with 2 arms and lifted her off the ground. Then he threw her gently to the mat. The training field flashed red, indicating she had taken enough damage to be knocked out in real combat. Match over, Captain Zexthal announced. Carter loses. Amy lay on the mat for a moment, breathing hard. Her ribs hurt where she had hit the ground. This was normal. She lost every sparring match. She always got hurt, but she always got back up. Pathetic, Captain Zexthal said as she stood up. In real combat, you would be dead in seconds. I do not understand why the Academy accepts humans. You are too weak, too slow, too fragile. The other students nodded in agreement. Amy had heard these words many times. She was used to them. But they still hurt Dot as she left the training area. Amy heard the whispers that followed her everywhere. Why do humans even try to be soldiers? Earth must be very peaceful if that is their best warrior. She will quit soon. They always do. But Amy did not quit. She walked back to her small dorm room and sat on her bed. On her desk was a picture of her family back on Earth. Her little brother Jake smiled at the camera. He was proud that his sister was training to be a space soldier. Amy looked out her window at the alien stars. Tomorrow there would be more classes, more training, more losing, more laughter from alien students who thought humans were weak. But she would not give up. She could not give up. In 2 weeks, the final examination would begin. Every cadet would face the ultimate test in the Academy's most dangerous training facility. Most would fail. Many would be badly hurt. Amy knew she was not the strongest or the fastest cadet, but she had something the aliens did not understand. She had grown up on Earth, where every day was a fight to survive, where humans learned to be tough, not because they were born strong, but because they had to be. The aliens would learn soon enough what it meant to be human. The morning of the final examination arrived with purple sunrise over Centauri Prime. Amy woke up early and ate a simple breakfast in her dorm room. Her hands shook a little as she drank her coffee. Today would decide if she passed or failed the academy. All the cadets gathered in the main assembly hall. The room was huge, with a ceiling that reached high above their heads. 5,000 alien students filled the floating seats. Amy sat in the back row, as always. She watched as her classmates talked excitedly about the test ahead. Academy commander. Thess Ara stood at the front of the hall. She was an ancient Arcurian with wisdom that came from centuries of life. Her 6 eyes looked out over all the students as she began to speak. "Today you face the combat simulation trial," she announced. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. "This test will determine who among you is ready to defend the galaxy. Many of you will fail. Some of you will be injured. All of you will be changed." Amy felt her stomach turn. She had heard stories about this test. Every year, dozens of cadets were hurt badly. Some never recovered. A few had even died before the safety systems could save them. "You will be divided into teams of 4, Commander Thesara continued. "Your teammates will be chosen randomly. You cannot pick your friends or avoid your enemies. In real war, you must work with whoever stands beside you." A holographic display appeared in the air above the crowd. It showed a massive arena deep underground. The space was bigger than 10 football fields. Strange landscapes filled different sections. Amy could see mountains, swamps, ice fields, and areas that seemed to change and shift as she watched. "The arena will create challenges based on real combat situations," the commander explained. "You will face hostile environments, dangerous creatures, and unpredictable hazards. Your goal is simple: survive and complete your mission objectives. Teams that work together will succeed. Those that fight among themselves will fail." Amy's name appeared on the display along with 3 others. Her heart sank as she read the list. Korvac, the giant Krillian who had beaten her in training yesterday. Quinn, a graceful Velthari who always made jokes about humans. And Nexus 7, a crystalline Zarian whose psychic powers made Amy feel uncomfortable. She looked around and found her teammates in the crowd. Korvac was laughing with his Krillian friends. Quinn was examining her fingernails with bored elegance. Nexus 7 sat perfectly still, his crystal body reflecting the hall's lights in strange patterns. None of them looked happy to be teamed with the weak human. The teams were given an hour to meet and plan before entering the arena. Amy found her teammates in a small preparation room. The space felt cramped with Korvac's massive frame taking up most of it. "Well," Quinn said, looking at Amy with those large purple eyes. "This is unfortunate." Korvac crossed all 4 of his arms. "We must carry the human through this test. She will slow us down, but we have no choice." Nexus 7 spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "My psychic scans indicate low probability of success with current team composition." Amy tried to speak up. "Maybe we should talk about strategy." "I've studied the arena layouts and human," Korvac interrupted. "You will stay behind us and try not to get killed. We will handle the real fighting." Quinn nodded in agreement. "My people have trained for thousands of years in combat arts. Korvac's strength is legendary even among Krillians. Nexus 7 can see the future with his mind powers. What exactly can you contribute?" Amy felt her face get hot again. "I can. You can follow orders," Korvac said firmly. "That is all." The preparation time ended quickly. Teams began moving toward the arena entrance. Amy walked behind her teammates, listening to them plan strategies that did not include her. They talked about Korvac's 4-armed fighting style. They discussed Quinn's ability to move faster than most eyes could follow. They praised Nexus 7's power to predict enemy attacks. They did not mention Amy at all. The arena entrance was a massive steel door that opened into darkness. Teams went in one at a time, each separated by several minutes. When Amy's team was called, she felt her heart beating fast in her chest. They stepped through the door and found themselves in a gray waiting room. Weapons and equipment hung on the walls. Each team member could choose their gear before the test began. Korvac selected a massive warhammer that would have been too heavy for 3 humans to lift. Quinn picked twin curved blades that looked like they were made of flowing silver. Nexus 7 chose a staff that hummed with psychic energy. Amy looked at the remaining weapons. Most were too big for her small hands. She finally picked a simple combat knife and a basic energy pistol. Her teammates shook their heads at her poor choices. "The human picks toys," Korvac muttered. A voice spoke from hidden speakers in the ceiling. "Team 847, prepare for insertion. Your mission is to cross the arena and reach the extraction point on the far side. You will face multiple challenges along the way. Your performance will be measured on speed, teamwork, and adaptation to unexpected situations." The floor beneath their feet began to glow. Amy recognized the teleportation technology. In a few seconds, they would be inside the arena facing real danger. "Remember," Quinn said to the others, "protect the human if you can, but do not risk the mission for her sake." The room flashed bright white. When Amy's vision cleared, they were standing on a rocky hill overlooking a vast wilderness. The arena stretched out before them like an alien world. She could see forests of strange trees, rivers that flowed upward, and mountains that moved. Slowly across the landscape dot above them, an artificial sky showed 2 suns casting weird shadows in all directions. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet that made Amy's nose itch. "Incredible," Quinn whispered. "The technology here is beyond anything I have seen." Nexus 7 raised his staff, and his crystal body began to glow. "I sense multiple threats. Ahead, large predators in the forest, environmental hazards throughout the central region, and something else ... something the arena's computers have not revealed to us." Korvac pointed toward a distant mountain peak. "The extraction point is there. We move fast and fight anything that gets in our way." Amy studied the landscape more carefully. Her human eyes, which everyone said were inferior to alien senses, noticed things her teammates missed. The way certain plants bent suggested strong wind patterns. The color of some rocks indicated unstable ground. Small movements in the forest revealed the paths that dangerous animals used. "Wait," she said. "I think we should—" "Human, be quiet," Korvac snapped. "We move now." He began walking down the hill toward the forest. Quinn followed with her graceful stride. Nexus 7 floated behind them, his psychic powers scanning for immediate threats. Amy had no choice but to follow. But as they entered the strange wilderness, she kept noticing details that worried her. The other teams that had entered before them were nowhere to be seen. That was not normal. Teams usually stayed within sight of each other for safety. She also noticed that the arena's challenges seemed to be adapting and changing. The forest ahead looked different than it had from the hilltop. New paths had appeared while others had vanished. Something was wrong. The arena was not behaving like the training simulations they had practiced on. This felt more dangerous, more real. Amy tried to warn her teammates again, but they were not listening. They moved forward with confidence, sure that their superior alien abilities would carry them through any challenge. They had no idea what was waiting for them in the depths of the arena, and they had no idea that their weak human teammate might be the only one prepared for what was coming. The team moved deeper into the strange forest. Amy walked at the back, trying to keep up with her teammates' longer strides. The trees around them were unlike anything on Earth. They had silver bark and leaves that glowed with soft blue light. The air felt thick and humid, making it hard to breathe. Korvac led the way, pushing through the undergrowth with his massive strength. Branches that would stop a normal person snapped like twigs under his 4 powerful arms. Quinn danced between the trees with elegant movements, never seeming to touch the ground for more than a second. Nexus 7 floated silently behind them, his crystal body casting rainbow patterns on the forest floor. Amy noticed that the forest was too quiet. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed muffled and strange. Back on Earth, a quiet forest meant danger. Predators were near, and all the small animals had hidden themselves. She opened her mouth to warn the others, but Korvac spoke first. "This is too easy," he said, swinging his warhammer to clear more branches. "Where are the challenges? I expected to be fighting by now." Quinn nodded in agreement. "Perhaps the arena is saving the real tests for later. Or maybe the Academy has made this too simple." Nexus 7's voice chimed like broken glass. "My psychic senses detect no immediate threats. The path ahead appears clear." Amy frowned. Her human instincts told her something different. The hairs on her neck stood up. Her heart beat faster than normal. Every part of her body was warning her that danger was close. "I think we should be more careful," she said quietly. "The human is scared." Quinn laughed. "How typical." They kept walking. The glowing trees became thicker and taller. Soon the canopy above them blocked out most of the arena's artificial suns. The blue glow from the leaves was the only light in the growing darkness. Amy's eyes adjusted quickly to the dim conditions. Another thing her teammates did not know about humans was how well they could see in low light. It was not as good as some alien species, but it was better than what Krillians, Velthari, or Xerians could manage. She began to see shapes moving in the trees above them, dark forms that flowed from branch to branch without making any sound. They were big, at least as large as Amy herself, and there were many of them. "Stop," Amy whispered urgently. "Something's up there." But her voice was too quiet. Her teammates kept moving forward, talking among themselves about how easy the test was turning out to be. Amy saw one of the dark shapes drop lower. It hung from a branch directly above Korvac's head. She could see its outline now, long and lean with multiple arms and legs. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. "Stop!" Amy shouted as loud as she could. This time her teammates heard her. They turned around with annoyed expressions. "Human, what is your—" Korvac began to say. The creature above him let go of the branch and dropped down like a falling stone. Its claws were extended, aimed right at Korvac's neck. Amy's body reacted before her mind could think. Every muscle in her small frame exploded into motion. She threw herself forward, crashing into Korvac's massive legs just as the creature struck. Beast's claws raked across Korvac's shoulder instead of his throat. He roared in pain and anger, spinning around to face his attacker. But the creature was already gone, vanishing back into the trees as quickly as it had appeared. More shapes began dropping from the canopy above. Dozens of them. They moved faster. But Amy's eyes could follow, but somehow her body knew where they would be. She rolled to the side as razor-sharp claws slashed through the air where she had been standing. "Shadowhawks?" Nexus 7 cried out, his crystal form flashing with alarm. "The arena's most dangerous predators." Quinn drew her silver blades and spun in a graceful circle, trying to track the attacking creatures. But they moved too fast and too unpredictably for her trained movements. One of them got past her guard and raked its claws across her arm. She cried out and stumbled backward. Korvac swung his warhammer in wild arcs, trying to smash the creatures out of the air. His 4 arms moved with incredible speed and power, but the Shadowhawks were like living smoke. They flowed around his attacks and struck from unexpected angles. Nexus 7 raised his psychic staff and tried to predict where the creatures would attack next, but his powers found nothing. The Shadowhawks were not alive in the way that other creatures were. They were artificial, created by the arena's computers. His psychic abilities could not read minds that did not exist. The team was losing badly. Amy could see panic starting to show in her teammates' movements. They were used to fighting enemies they could understand, enemies that followed patterns and rules. The Shadowhawks followed no rules except violence and speed. Amy's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her breathing became fast and shallow. Her hands started to shake. But instead of making her weaker, these changes made her stronger. Something deep inside her human brain switched on. Millions of years of evolution on a deadly planet kicked into gear. Her pupils grew large, letting in more light. Her reaction time became faster than she had ever experienced before. The world around her seemed to slow down. She could see the Shadowhawks now. Not clearly, but enough. Her brain was processing tiny details that she had never noticed before. The way air moved around their bodies. The subtle sounds their claws made as they cut through space. The patterns in their attacks that are logical. Mind could not understand, but her animal instincts could predict. Amy moved like she had never moved before. She ducked under a Shadowhawk's dive and grabbed a broken branch from the ground. The wood felt solid and familiar in her hands. Humans had been using simple weapons for thousands of years. She swung the branch like a club and felt it connect with something solid. A Shadowhawk shrieked and tumbled to the ground. Amy was already moving again, spinning to face the next attack. Her teammates stared in shock. The small human who could barely win a training match was moving like a predator herself. She flowed between the Shadowhawk's attacks with movements that looked random, but somehow always put her in the right place. How is she doing that? Quinn gasped, pressing her hand against her wounded arm. Korvac had stopped swinging his hammer. He watched Amy with his small red eyes wide with surprise. She moves like an animal. Amy heard them, but did not respond. She was too busy fighting for all their lives. The Shadowhawks had realized she was the real threat now. More of them focused their attacks on her small form, but Amy was ready for them. Every attack they made taught her something new about how they moved. Every near miss showed her a weakness she could exploit. This was what humans did best. They learned from danger and adapted faster than any other species in the galaxy. She grabbed Korvac's fallen gear bag and swung it like a weapon. The heavy bag smashed into a Shadowhawk and sent it flying into a tree. She rolled under another attack and came up with Quinn's dropped water bottle, throwing it with perfect accuracy to distract a creature that was diving toward Nexus 7. The battle was turning. The Shadowhawks were fast and deadly, but they were not learning. They attacked the same way every time. Amy was learning and adapting with every heartbeat. Her alien teammates began to understand what they were seeing. This was not luck or accident. The weak human was not weak at all. She was something much more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Amy's body moved without her thinking about it. Her hands found a sharp piece of metal that had fallen from someone's gear. She spun it between her fingers like she had been born holding weapons. The remaining Shadowhawks circled above them, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. One creature dove straight down at her face. Amy twisted to the side and slashed upward with the metal shard. The Shadowhawk shrieked and pulled back, black fluid dripping from a deep cut across its chest. "Impossible," Quinn whispered. She hit it. No one can hit them when they move that fast. But Amy was not done. She picked up a handful of dirt and threw it at another attacking Shadowhawk. The creature's eyes were blinded for just a moment. That was enough. Amy leaped forward and drove her makeshift weapon deep into its body. The Shadowhawk collapsed and did not move again. The other creatures seemed to understand that their easy prey had become dangerous. They pulled back into the higher branches. making angry sounds that echoed through the forest. Amy stood breathing hard, her clothes torn and dirty. Blood ran from small cuts on her arms and face, but her eyes were bright and alert. She looked around at her teammates, who were staring at her like they had never seen her before. "How?" Korvac asked. His voice was quiet for such a big creature. "How did you do that?" Amy wiped blood from her lip with the back of her hand. "I don't know. I just reacted." But that was not the whole truth. Something had awakened inside her during the fight. Something that had been sleeping all her life. Her human ancestors had survived ice ages and volcanic eruptions. They had fought saber-toothed cats and cave bears with nothing but sticks and stones. That same wild strength now flowed through Amy's veins. Nexus 7 floated closer to her, his crystal body pulsing with different colors. "Your brain patterns have changed. I can sense emotions and thoughts that were not there before. You are not the same person who entered this arena." Amy looked up at the trees where the Shadowhawks were hiding. "We need to keep moving. They're not gone. They're waiting for us to let our guard down." Quinn clutched her wounded arm and nodded. "The human is right. We cannot stay here." Korvac picked up his warhammer, but did not take the lead this time. Instead, he looked at Amy. "Which way should we go?" Amy studied the forest around them. Her enhanced senses picked up details that had been invisible before. She could smell water ahead, which meant a river. She could hear subtle sounds that told her which direction the other teams had gone. Most importantly, she could feel air. Currents that suggested an open area beyond the trees. "That way," she pointed to their left. "But we need to be quiet. There are more things hunting in this forest than just Shadowhawks." They began moving again, but everything was different now. Amy took the lead, her small form slipping between the trees like a ghost. Her teammates followed behind her, trusting her instincts in a way they never had before. The forest began to change as they walked. The glowing trees gave way to twisted black ones with thorns instead of leaves. The ground became soft and muddy, making wet sounds under their feet. Strange smells filled the air, some sweet, some rotten, all dangerous. Amy held up her hand for them to stop. Ahead, she could see something that made her stomach turn. It was another team of cadets, or what was left of them. 3 alien students lay motionless in the mud. Their equipment was scattered around them. Deep claw marks covered their bodies. "Dead," Nexus 7 said, after scanning them with his psychic powers. "They have been dead for an hour." Quinn covered her mouth with her hand. "What killed them?" Amy knelt down next to the bodies and studied the wounds. The cuts were too big to be from Shadowhawks, and they were burned at the edges, as if made by something very hot. "Acid claws," she said quietly. "Something with acid for blood." As if her words had summoned it, a low growling sound came from the darkness ahead. Something big was moving through the trees toward them. Amy could smell it now, a harsh chemical scent that burned her nose. "Run," she said. "We should fight." Korvac argued. "I am not afraid of run." Amy screamed. This time they listened. The team crashed through the undergrowth as fast as they could move. Behind them, Amy could hear heavy footsteps and the sound of trees being knocked down. Whatever was chasing them was much bigger than the Shadowhawks. They burst out of the forest into an open area filled with strange rock formations. The ground here was solid stone, carved into impossible shapes by unknown forces. Amy led them between the twisted rocks, looking for a place to hide. "There," Quinn pointed to a narrow cave opening between 2 large stones. "We can make a stand." They squeezed into the cave just as their pursuer emerged from the forest. Amy got her first clear look at it and wished she had not. The creature stood 12 feet tall on 4 thick legs. Its body was covered in armored plates that dripped with acid. Where the acid touched the ground, the stone began to smoke and melt. Acid Stalker Nexus 7 identified. One of the arena's most deadly predators. Its claws can melt through any armor. The creature sniffed the air around the cave entrance. Its head turned toward their hiding spot. Amy could see its eyes, black orbs that reflected no light at all. "It knows we're here," she whispered. The acid stalker began to squeeze into the cave opening. Its massive body barely fit, but it was determined to reach them. Acid dripped from its claws onto the cave floor, filling the air with toxic fumes. Amy's mind raced. In the narrow space, Korvac's strength would be useless. Quinn's speed meant nothing when there was no room to move. Nexus 7's psychic powers could not affect the creature's artificial mind, but humans had one advantage that no other species possessed. They could think clearly, even when death was seconds away. Panic made other aliens freeze or run. It made humans more creative. Amy looked around the cave and saw something the others had missed. The walls were covered with a strange crystalline substance that glowed faintly. She had seen something like it before in her xenobiology classes. "Everyone, get behind me," she ordered. "Human, what are you?" Korvac started to say. "Do IT now?" Her teammates pressed themselves against the back wall of the cave. Amy grabbed a piece of the glowing crystal from the wall and threw it, as hard as she could, at the acid stalker's face. The crystal shattered against the creature's armored head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the broken pieces began to react with the acid on the creature's body. The mixture started to glow brighter and brighter. Amy had remembered something from her studies. Some crystals became explosive when mixed with certain acids. She grabbed more pieces from the wall and threw them at the creature. The acid stalker roared in pain and confusion as explosions began popping all over its body. The chemical reaction was burning through its armor. It tried to back out of the cave, but more crystals were falling from the ceiling where Amy's throws had loosened them. The creature retreated from the cave, howling and shaking its massive head. Amy could hear it stumbling away through the rock formations, leaving a trail of smoking acid behind it. Her teammates stared at her in complete silence. The small human had just defeated one of the arena's most feared predators using nothing but quick thinking and basic chemistry knowledge. "How did you know?" Quinn asked finally. Amy sat down heavily on the cave floor. Her whole body was shaking. Now that the danger was past, "I didn't know. I just hoped." Korvac looked at her with something that might have been respect. "On my homeworld, we have a saying. The smallest blade can cut the deepest wound." Amy managed a tired smile. "We need to keep moving. The extraction point is still far away, and I think the arena is just getting started with us." The team left the cave and continued across the strange rock formations. Amy led the way now, and nobody questioned her decisions. Korvac walked beside her instead of in front. Quinn moved carefully, watching Amy's face for signs of danger. Nexus 7 floated behind them, using his powers to watch their backs. The arena had become more dangerous as they traveled deeper into it. The ground shook under their feet every few minutes. Cracks opened in the stone without warning. Strange gases rose from hidden vents, forcing them to cover their faces and run. "The arena is fighting us," Amy said as they climbed over a fallen boulder. "It's learning from our actions and creating new challenges." "Impossible," Quinn replied. "The Academy would not create a test that could actually kill students." Amy pointed to the distance behind them, where smoke still rose from the forest where they had fought the acid stalker. "Tell that to the dead team we found." They reached the top of a rocky hill and could finally see their destination. The extraction point was a tall tower on a mountain peak several miles away. Between them and the tower lay the most dangerous part of the arena, a valley filled with shifting landscapes and moving storms. "We can make it," Korvac said, though his voice did not sound confident. Amy studied the valley with her enhanced human vision. She could see patterns in the chaos that her teammates missed. The storms moved in circles, but they left safe paths between them. The shifting ground had a rhythm, dangerous for 30 seconds, then stable for 60 seconds. "We can," she agreed. "But we need to work together. No more arguing about who leads or who follows. We all have skills that we need." She turned to face her teammates. They looked different than they had at the start of the test. Korvac's armor was dented and scratched. Quinn's elegant clothes were torn and dirty. Nexus 7's crystal body was cracked in several places, but their eyes were different too. They looked at Amy with respect instead of pity. "Korvac," Amy said, "your strength can break through barriers that would stop the rest of us. Quinn, your speed can get us across dangerous ground before it shifts. Nexus 7, your psychic powers can warn us about threats we cannot see." "And you?" Nexus 7 asked. "What is your role, human?" Amy looked down at the valley again. "I keep us alive." They began the descent into the valley. Almost immediately, the arena threw new challenges at them. The ground turned to quicksand under their feet. Amy shouted for Korvac to grab Quinn and Nexus 7 while she found solid rock to stand on. His powerful arms lifted them to safety, while Amy guided them to stable ground. A storm of razor-sharp ice began falling from the sky. Quinn used her speed to scout ahead and find shelter under an overhanging rock. Amy calculated the storm's pattern and told them exactly when to run to the next safe spot. Strange creatures emerged from hidden burrows in the ground. Nexus 7's psychic powers detected them before they could attack. Amy coordinated the teams. Response: using Korvac's strength and Quinn's speed to defeat the creatures while keeping everyone safe. They worked together like they never had before. Amy's human adaptability allowed her to find solutions that none of them could discover alone. But she also knew how to use her teammates' alien abilities in ways they had never considered. "You are not giving us orders," Quinn realized as they paused to rest behind a large crystal formation. "You are teaching us how to be better." Amy smiled. "Humans are good at working with others. We had to be. On Earth, the only way to survive was to help each other." "Your planet must be very dangerous," Korvac said. "Every day," Amy replied. "But that made us strong in ways that peaceful worlds cannot understand." They continued through the valley. The extraction point grew larger as they got closer, but the challenges became more intense. The arena seemed desperate to stop them now. Earthquakes shook the ground every few steps. Poisonous plants tried to grab them with moving vines. Flying creatures attacked from above, while ground predators stalked them from below. But Amy's team was ready for everything. They moved like a single organism, each member knowing exactly what the others would do. Amy's tactical thinking guided them through each danger. Her teammates' unique abilities solved problems that would have killed them individually. They reached the base of the mountain as the arena's artificial suns began to set. The tower was just a short climb above them, but the path was blocked. By the arena's final challenge, 3 other teams had reached this point before them. All 3 were trapped on a narrow ledge halfway up the mountain. Above them, a massive creature unlike anything they had seen before blocked the path to the tower. The beast was the size of a building, with wings that could create hurricane winds and claws that could tear through solid rock. Its roar shook the entire mountain. Several cadets on the ledge were badly injured. Others were too scared to move. "The Grand Predator," Nexus 7 whispered, "the arena's ultimate challenge. It is supposed to be impossible to defeat." Amy watched the creature for several minutes, studying its movements and behavior. The other teams had tried to fight it with brute force and failed. They had tried to sneak past it and then caught. They had tried to wait for it to leave and discovered it. Would never abandon its post. There, Amy said finally, pointing to a series of small caves near the top of the mountain. Those caves connect to the tower. We don't have to fight the creature. We just have to get past it. How? Quinn asked. It sees everything that moves. On the mountain, Amy picked up a handful of small rocks. Because it's watching for big threats. It won't notice something small and careful. She explained her plan. It was dangerous and required perfect timing. Each team member would have to use their abilities in exactly the right way at exactly the right moment. One mistake would get them all killed, but they trusted her now. They had seen what human tactical thinking could accomplish when combined with alien abilities. The plan worked perfectly. Quinn's speed got her to the first cave before the creature could react. Nexus 7's psychic powers created a distraction. At the opposite end of the mountain, Korvac's strength broke through a rock wall to create a new path. And Amy's careful timing coordinated everything so that they reached the caves, just as the creature was looking in the wrong direction. They climbed through the caves and emerged at the extraction point as the arena's timer reached 0. They had not only survived the test, but achieved the highest score in Academy History. As they stood on the tower's platform, waiting for teleportation back to the Academy, Amy's teammates looked at her with amazement. I was wrong about humans, Korvac said simply. I was wrong about everything, Quinn nodded. We all were. We thought strength and speed were what mattered in combat. But you showed us something more important. What's that? Amy asked. You showed. U.S. what it means to never give up, Nexus 7 replied. No matter how hopeless things seem, you find a way to survive and help others survive too. The teleportation beam activated, and they appeared back in the Academy's assembly hall. Thousands of alien students cheered as they emerged from the arena. Amy's small human form was barely visible among her tall teammates, but every eye in the hall was looking at her. Commander Thesara stepped forward with something that might have been a smile on her ancient face. Congratulations, Team 847. You have achieved something remarkable today. You have shown us all what true strength looks like. Amy looked out at the crowd of alien faces. She saw Captain Zexthol in the front row. The old Krillian warrior was not laughing at her anymore. He was saluting. The Academy would never be the same, and neither would anyone's opinion of what it meant to be human. The Deathworld species had finally shown the galaxy what they were capable of, and the galaxy was listening.